everybody, I am Kara Brown. I am an urban fantasy author and a writer for Otherworld Comics, and I am here to finally talk to you about how to actually market your book. If you've been following this particular series for a little bit, I've been talking a lot about how to market your book, but I've been focusing a lot on the social media elements of how to get yourself established, and I did that because they're kind of a primer for what we're going to talk about today. So anytime you want to talk about a promotional campaign for your book, you need anywhere between 3 and 6 months, and you need 3 and 6 months for a couple of different reasons. Obviously, you're trying to build hype, you are trying to build awareness, but the awareness that you are trying to get is not just with a potential reader, but it is from the brick and mortar stores. Having your book in a brick and mortar store is honestly a really good thing. It's a great marketing just in itself because it's in the store. However, a brick and mortar store are not going to put your book on the shelf if they don't think that is going to be a guaranteed sell. And the way that you can say it's a guaranteed sell is by having a lot of different things happen for it that make people want it. Once the company sees that it is a thing that they know that they will be able to sell and push on to, people who walk into the store, they're more likely to put it on the shelf. One of the things that these companies do pay attention to are going to be pre-orders and the number of pre-orders that are happening. If they see that something is a hot commodity, they're more than likely to order copies for themselves and put it on the shelf. Having said that, you need to have a pre-order out for anywhere between 6 and 3 months, so that way it raises the awareness and that they see that it's not some kind of weird flash sale. So that's why you do need to plan your marketing thing for up to 3 to 6 months, just so that way you can raise the awareness and get their attention. Now, the biggest seller of your book is going to be your cover. Like this isn't even a question, this is a thing. I cannot stress how important it is that you do not skimp on your cover. It needs to be professionally done by somebody with a lot of experience who knows what they're doing. The days of not judging a book by its cover are gone. Right now it's used as a marketing ploy in order to get a reader's attention, to have them read the back of the book in hopes that they'll purchase it. And speaking of that brings me to my next point. Your book blurb or your book descriptor needs to be done in a way that is enticing for the reader and it kind of makes them want to purchase the book, or at least have them open and read the first few pages. This is not a sales pitch, this is kind of like a teaser, and in this needs to be your own style and kind of like the themes of the book, among other things. I could honestly talk about this for probably a whole video on itself, but I'm not going to do that in this one because we're talking about marketing. But outside of that, another thing that you can do that's going to help sell your book is actually going to be your street team. A street team is a collection of people who basically congregate together to help raise awareness for your book in various platforms. It can either be done on social media, it can be done in person, it can be them going to bookstores and requesting the book themselves, and this can be anywhere between a group of, I want to say, 5 to 30 people. It really depends on, what you're looking to have. Another thing that's going to help out the sales of your book and raising awareness is having people do an advanced copy review, which is also known as an ARC. An ARC works in the sense that basically you give a free copy of the book for a free and honest review. Free and honest. So if they don't like it, they don't like it. If they do like it, they do. But at least they've had a review in for the book. And you need reviews. And you do need kind of like a mix of reviews, because if you have too many 5 stars, people are going to be very suspicious of your book. Now, some of you may be wondering where you're going to find these ARC review people, and you can honestly find them anywhere. I would say shop around, see what you can find. There are some services that do provide, that do help you with finding readers that you can connect with, but sometimes these services are iffy. Like, for example, with my short story that I sent out, I basically sent the short story to 20 people and only one of them has responded. And actually, that's pretty typical. You will send your story out to a whole bunch of people and only a handful of them will actually do a review. But some reviews are better than no review. One of the things I would recommend, actually a couple, when you are approaching somebody to do an ARC review is, first off, make sure that they are a reader for your genre. If these are people who usually read romance and you're sitting there trying to put a thriller at them, they're more than likely going to turn you down just because you didn't do your research. The other thing is that if they do your genre and you know that it would be a good fit, but they turn the book down anyway because of whatever reason they decide to, don't press the issue. Kind of conduct yourself in a professional manner. Say thank you for your time. Please let me know if you change your mind in the future, and leave it at that. Another thing that you can do is interviews. And some of you may be thinking that you won't be doing an interview until after the book is out, but you can do them before as well. For example, recently I did an interview with a podcast who wanted to talk to me about the mythological themes of my book and how I came across those and the research that was involved. And that's good because that's still publicity, and that's kind of helping you reach out to people that you weren't in contact with before, and that now they'll know that you're there and they'll more than likely come looking for you and your book, and in a good way. Now, you heard me mention reviews before, and reviews are very important because those are things that people do check out when they're looking at books. I especially check them out. I look at all the reviews. I look at the good, I look at the medium, and I look at the really bad reviews, because sometimes a bad review will still tell me stuff I want to know about the book. For example, I read one book because somebody said they didn't like it because it was a very large book that had a lot of details in it, and I I'm actually into details in very large books, so I was totally in for this. But you will find that getting the reviews in the beginning are going to be hard, especially if you're a debut author that nobody's heard about. Now, the easiest way that you're going to get reviews is honestly just by asking for them, but do it nicely. I do it in a couple different ways. If you watch my videos here or you see me on the live streams or anything like that, I always ask people if they read my work and they like it, or even if they don't like it, to please leave me a review. I also, in the back of all my works that I'm having coming out right now, because I do have more coming out, that in the back, once the story is finished, I talk to the reader, I thank them for reading it, and then I ask if they are willing to leave a review, just because, you know, people don't trust books that don't have reviews. When you do get reviews, just don't comment on them. Don't reach out. If somebody has a misunderstanding about your book, they have a misunderstanding. It is not your place as the author to come in and correct these misconceptions or try and speak to these people. You can like their whatever it is that they have to say. A lot of people actually tell you to not read the reviews. That's a personal choice. I know some who watch these things religiously. I know some who refuse to look at them. But I would definitely discourage you from trying to have a conversation in the review section, just because it's too easy to misunderstand or misinterpret what it is that you're trying to say, and the last thing that you really want to do is have a bad public image. Another way to market yourself is by using other mediums. You can, if you are a blogger, you can talk about, on the bottom about how your book is coming out, you're looking for reviews. If you do a YouTube video, you can talk about that there. Pretty much in all the mediums, Twitter, everything that I've talked about, you do have the opportunity to promote yourself and your work. But if you've watched my other videos, I kind of covered how to do that subtly without being obnoxious, and you really do not want to be obnoxious about this. Now, another thing that I would recommend, and this does involve some legwork on your part, and it's going to conventions. And when I say conventions, I don't mean Phoenix Comic Con. You can go to that if you really want to. I mean, I'm going to go. But anyway, you can go to conventions, and I would say writing conventions. Even if it's not in your genre, you should still go. And the reason you should go is because you are going to be networking with other writers who are more than happy to usually support you, because you're going to support them back, right? Now, I have met people who pay to go to the conventions and they pay to sit and speak on a panel, and that's honestly great, because if you're able to talk on a panel and kind of showcase your knowledge and show that you're an authority on a subject, good for you. That's great. People do respect that. But what I will warn you about is that if you go onto a panel with, a well-known author, you need to understand that the majority of the people in that room are not actually there to listen to you. They're there to listen to the person that's next to you. The very last marketing thing that you can do, and I've mentioned this before, and I'm going to mention it again because it is one of the strategies, is you can do a paid advertisement. There are lots of different sites that you can do a paid advertisement for, but as I've said in previous videos, people will usually ignore a paid advertisement unless it, runs across them multiple times. This is going to cost you, and frequently these paid advertisements don't work unless whatever it is that you're selling is on discount. Now, I know earlier in the video I said that you need to give yourself 3 to 6 months to do a lot of these things, and some of the items that I listed off don't seem like 3 to 6 month items, but they actually are. For example, an ARC review, you're asking somebody to read your book, you're asking them to review it. You don't know how many other books that they have at the time, you don't know when they're going to finish it, you don't know their reading speed, and having that cushion room of 3 to 6 months is actually going to help you help them, because at least you'll give them a greater window to work with in order to do that review. If you're looking at going to a convention, you need to know the guidelines for the convention, you need to submit the application, you need to make sure you submit it on time, and you also need to make sure that you're able to go to the place, and that requires funds, you have to save money. Now, these aren't all the strategies, there are multiple other strategies that you can use, but the strategies that I listed are the ones that you can use by yourself. You don't need a corporation or a company to help you with this. And I encourage you to do these things just because the more invested that you are in your book, the more energy that's going to have, and people are going to see that you're invested. And frequently people like to buy books because they can see that the author is passionate about what they're doing, and that's not a bad image to give. Having said that though, if you know of a strategy that I did not list that you think that an author is able to do by themselves and they should do, please feel free to leave that comment down below. Again, as always, I always want to have these as a discussion or a place of resource for people who are getting their feet under themselves and they're just trying to figure out what to do. The entire process of trying to market ourselves and sell what it is that we love and we spent years making is more daunting than the actual writing process itself, but the more knowledge and the more support that we give each other, the better it goes. Now that brings us to the end of the video. I do have a couple of things I do want to talk about. First things first, my posting schedule is going back to only posting on Fridays. This was the schedule I had originally, and the only reason I switched to doing it 3 times a week was because my original release was supposed to be this week. That did not happen. But at the same time, I already said that I was going to post 3 times a week, so usually when I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. So I'm going back to Fridays after this. Now, this isn't going to be the last marketing video that I do. If you've been watching the little tiny series that I've been doing involving this, I said, you know, in a couple places that I could go a lot more in depth with this, like it could have its own video, yada, yada, yada. If you would like me to go more in depth with a particular social media thing that I mentioned or a strategy that you heard about, please let me know. I am more than happy to do these in-depth reviews for you. If you request it, I will probably make it within reason. So next week on the 30th, the newsletter is going out. And the newsletter has a lot of stuff in there that I want to cover. It's going to talk about the book update, it's going to talk about company updates, it's going to talk about a lot of things, but it's also going to have a new short story in there for you. And if you're signed up for the newsletter, you're going to have access to the short story before I even put it up on Kindle. But that's all I got for you. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I will see you next week.